Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bedpost Podcast. Now, you wouldn't know this because we're such professionals here at the Bedpost Podcast, but this is my first time back in the studio for like a month because I was in my honeymoon, so I'm really excited to be here. For those of you who are tuning in, listening on our podcast, or just watching on the YouTube channel, the Bedpost Podcast is a place where I bring super sexy guests into the studio here at Eggplant Media to have a more in-depth conversation about sex and sexuality with me. So today's guest, I'm very excited. I actually came across them through Fatima from Oasis Aqua Lounge, which if you're regular listeners and watcher, you're going to know exactly what Oasis is and who Fatima is. She comes on and guests a lot. So she recommended these fantastic guests that I'm going to have here for me today. So please welcome to the mic, Edward Sear and Lauren Lavalle. Oh my God. Lavalle. Oh my God. Lauren Lavalle from the Sunday Night Indigenous Love and Sex Show. Hi, guys.
Hi.
How are ya?
We're
pretty
excited.
good today,
Excited to be here.
Sexcited?
Sexcited. We're super excited. Yeah.
Oh, that's a perfect word. I'm going to use that from now on.
Are you excited for the next episode?
Are you excited? We're all excited. It's so nice to have you here because I feel like it's kind of a different audience that you all cater to rather than I cater to. You cater to kind of a youthful audience because of why. Let's just tell people exactly what your whole organization is about.
Do you want to go first or should I?
So we kind of run this show through the Native Canadian Centre of Toronto, through the NAGB Youth Program. And we started this show just to create awareness and have like an open dialogue about sex within our community with our young people. I don't know if anyone wants to add to that.
Yeah, so essentially what really sparked our there's a couple different things that sparked our ambition to start this show. The first one was that there was a curriculum cut by the conservative government in regards to talking about sexuality and that was a problem for us as in particular Indigenous people. A lot of people may or may not be aware that HIV is amongst one of the highest growing rates in Aboriginal people, and so we really wanted to create bridges where there was gaps, and
there are a lot of gaps right now.
And there's a lot of
so
gaps.
many gaps,
and there's so much. And that was the other thing too about talking about gender neutral, non-binary stuff like that. That they wanted to cut that from the curriculum, and we also have a wide spectrum of two-spirit individuals in our community, and we really wanted to also start talking about those pronouns, start talking about the issues that need to be talked about, and so we're a sex positive. We want to start reducing shame and stigma.
Yes.
And
yes,
so that
God.
was. But the actual way that we actually got started on the so Lauren and I were watching
Game of Thrones,
and Lauren was.
I'm a pervert. I'm such a pervert. I have a huge thing for the little guy in the show.
She does have a crush on the short guy, and so we're watching the show, and she's like the background commentary during the show, and I said, you know what, Lauren, someone would probably find us very entertaining if we talked about sex and so we brought it to our youth council because the NAGB youth program is governed by a youth council, right? And so we told them we wanted to talk about sex, and they said, well, what about talking about relationships, because that's important too.
See, I love that. Okay, that is so valuable, I think, because we get we're getting basically nothing now with the new sex ed curriculum, but even like the sex ed curriculum as kind of sparse as it was from when I grew up, the you learn like anatomy. It's mostly just anatomy stuff, and then really safe sex stuff, which is super important. But like you learn about STDs, but you don't learn about like the love part of it, and it's like that's something that young people just dive into not knowing anything about, and there's a lot of, and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it can be dangerous, especially in our community. It can be dangerous like when you don't know certain aspects about love, like, you know, you give yourself to a person, like you put your full trust in them, and like there could be a lot of like negative outcomes, like, you know.
Oh, for sure. Just my personal story. I'm like, why didn't anybody educate me about dating like at a young age about like yeah.
Well, Erin, you'll be happy to know we have 3 separate episodes. The first one covers
first dates,
the
yeah.
second one, second dates, and then how to keep the fire in your relationship. So we wanted to be as transparent. Now, one of the barriers that we faced is, so we have 10 episodes released now with over 10,000 views.
Yeah.
And we're creating another 5 more episodes. But there's so much to cover, and we don't have enough time to cover all of them. Because we want to do one on cyber, sex, human trafficking. There's all these different subjects, but we just have so little time. Like me and Lauren both work full-time jobs.
For sure. Yeah. Me too. That's the thing. A lot of people see all the stuff I do with Bedpost and they're like, oh, that's so fantastic that you're like living the dream, you know, having all this kind of creative sex stuff as your career. I'm like, I have 3 jobs.
It's like, it's hard balancing
It's
it all.
a push to do all this, but it's important to do all this.
Yeah, it's
so
super
which
important.
is I'm sure why we all do. So are you able to just tell me, with it being kind of mostly Aboriginal focused and even more specific than that, Aboriginal use, tell me about how that lens is different from something that like shows that I might do and like my people in general that I might be speaking to on a regular basis versus you. Like, what are the what's different?
We try to incorporate like our teachings into our videos as well, and like, you know, considering our communities, lifestyles and everything, you know. So like something we talked about, like one of the teachings we were given by one of our really close friends, Camila Miracle, shout out to you. Hey. But like, it's really important to practice safer sex, like using condoms and stuff, you know, using birth control, because a lot of our women, you know, don't get the opportunity to use condoms and stuff, especially in situations where they're like sexually assaulted and stuff. So we share those kind of teachings, like, you know, we should honor our women and all those other people who were forced into having sex by practicing safer sex. So we look at it through like that kind of lens, where our community has been through a lot. So we want to remind them, like, you know, we have to honor our ancestors and all our people when we're thinking about everything, like all our actions.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about Indigenous women have probably the highest rate of being murdered and going missing here in Canada.
And Indigenous sex workers, it's like off the charts.
And so when we talk about Indigenous people, we talk about overrepresented in prisons, we talk about being overrepresented in HIV, overrepresented in the sex trade, overrepresented in homelessness, overrepresented in all these negative aspects. So we really want to start empowering our youth. And I think one of the ways that Lauren and I and the Anagbi Youth Program, we talk a lot about reducing shame and stigma. Yeah. And we think when we look through an Indigenous lens, I don't think all that shame around sex was there prior to pre-contact of our friends who came over on their big boats and stuff like that. With
quote unquote friends.
Yeah. Well, you know, and if you ever see the medicine wheel, like my early teachings were that that the medicine wheel was symbolic for the earth, and there was white, red, black, and yellow, and that represented the 4 different colors of our people, and everyone was equal, and everyone fit on that earth. Fortunately, now the white side takes up about 3/4
most of it.
Yeah, there's supposed to be a balance.
So, you know,
especially when you look at things like who has the majority of the money, of the power, of the et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, well, Erin,
influence, the representation, it's all white.
Absolutely. And I mean, I just moved into one of my full-time jobs right now. I'm a housing stability case manager.
Okay.
Trying to help house homeless Indigenous youth here in Toronto. And the housing is absolutely ridiculous in Toronto. It's so overpriced.
Oh God, yeah.
And then you see, like I said, I mean, there's all these multi-billion-dollar condos down here, and you have to ask yourself, how come Indigenous people don't have space in big cities like Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal? How come we, you know, and you know, I always say too that they put us on these small reservations to create an illusion of freedom, but really we're trapped in a lot of poverty and not good quality water, not good opportunities for education or employment. And so we would like to see our people rising up in big cities where there's lots of opportunity, and how this fosters on to sex. And because when we have individuals who can't find education or employment, we know that they're statistically more likely to potentially get into the sex trade and be doing things that are not consensual. And so we want to make sure that we're raising that awareness and raising the bar.
And not that we're very pro sex workers here. So not to say that, and not to generalize that all sex work means that they're a victim that has gotten into that industry, because there are tons and tons of people that love and enjoy that work, and have their whole lives and stuff like that. But for sure, to ignore that a portion of the sex work community is there involuntarily or has been forced into that industry,
especially in the Indigenous community.
Yeah, especially you're finding. Yeah.
So yeah, we're we've really worked really hard on this, and we've built partnerships with people like Fatima, who's just been absolutely amazing.
She's the best.
And then we also partnered up with a young lady named Ashley who works at Seduction. So we did
I know her well.
Oh, you know her as
You
well?
know her too?
I work there.
Right? Right on. Yeah, she was so
she's
helpful.
awesome.
So our first time we went in there and we shot an hour-long episode. And we were so excited. It was so funny. And then we went.
It was very funny.
But then we
No,
went.
that was the second.
That was the
version.
second
Oh,
one. So
okay.
after we went back, and none of the audio picked up. So we had to. So we
that's
took up
before-
so much Ashley's time.
That's before we had Damon. Shout out to Damon over
Damon,
there.
yeah, Damon.
Your
Before
technician,
we had our
yeah.
professional camera. We just used our phones in the beginning.
Yeah. And we had to both invite one of our friends. So like my cousin Brandon came, and then her friend Camelia came, and so they're both there with their iPhone and didn't pick up any of the audio.
Oh,
so.
that's such a heartbreaker.
And I felt so bad for Ashley. She was like, she took so much time to like organize everything, and then we're like, we have to come back, Ashley.
Oh
She was like,
my God.
I have to talk to my manager.
Hey, it happens. It totally happens.
Yeah.
I've for sure have recorded an entire episode with a really prominent, awesome trans person from New York, and I was like so lucky to get this interview with them and everything. And then my Mac just completely crapped out, and I lost the episode. And I was like,
No, yeah.
it's Bex. So from Bex Talk Sex. They're a really prominent, awesome sex educator, and like specifically on kink and all trans everything they talk about. And then I lost it, and I was like, oh my God, how embarrassing. But it happens. Shit happens.
Well,
Right?
it's been such a good learning experience for me and Lauren as well. So like when we went to the Seduction sex store,
Yes.
there was all sorts of things that I just did not know about, and I think we spent a lot. That was like our second home for a little while we were shooting.
Oh, we would just walk up in there. The entire staff would know who we are. They're
That's
like, "Oh, Ashley's
awesome.
not here right now. She's on break, or she's just."
And we're like, we're
stepped
just doing
out."
research, and there we are looking at various sex toys and whips
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff like that. And it's I didn't know they had so much stuff for men.
Yeah, a lot of, specifically at that store, there's a lot of male centric, or should I say penis owners,
Yeah.
to be inclusive of.
You know what? We're so conscious of that too with our episodes now, because we want to make sure that we're appealing also to our Two-Spirit and LGBTQS
Yeah, for
2S
sure.
community. So instead of saying
Men
or women, we say
like
penises
those-
or vaginas.
Yeah.
We just go
Vulva
right
owners.
to the sex. Yeah, those
Yeah.
who have exactly.
Yeah,
Those who have
whoever
a
has a
penis.
vagina,
Are you
whoever
a-
has a penis.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's super important as well to
Yeah.
just kind of get that in the miasma of the culture to start being inclusive like
Yeah,
that when you
absolutely.
use pronouns and
Well, it
whatnot.
just really honors those individuals who are a part of that community, and I think the community really recognizes when you do honor those pronouns and you are trying to be gender neutral with the stuff. And we just shot an episode not too long ago at Two Spirits of the First Nations with Keith McCready and Tamara Eli, and their episode did really, really well. We had to edit it, but they're up to 1,000 views in like a week as well. So it's,
Yeah, that video did
so
really
it's-
well.
It's so good to see the community coming together. You know what I mean?
Are you able to explain to people? I'm sure a lot of people are aware of LGBTQ plus. Yeah.
To us.
Yeah.
I feel like they're not really aware of the two. Are you able to speak on
two-spirited
that?
people.
The two-spirited part?
The Two-Spirit of the people, and someone who doesn't
Identify that.
identify as Two-Spirit, it's really important that I allow those individuals
Right.
to have their voice. There's a
course.
whole episode on it.
Okay,
it's
great.
episode 10
Yeah.
on the
Great.
Sunday Night Indigenous Sex and Love show, which can be found on YouTube. And Keith McCready does a very great job explaining
Okay, perfect.
his version of Two-Spirit. Just because I don't want to say something that might
sure.
be offensive or
Yeah.
or
It's important for
misconstrued.
people who are a part of that community to
Yes.
to be the ones who speak about it.
Great point.
And when we were, I think that was the big part, because we really wanted to include an LGBTQ2S segment, and we want to do more LGBTQ2S focused videos as well. But we have, like I said, such limited time, and and funding available for this. As you know, the funding all got cut for that, right? So
Yeah.
me and Lauren, we have actually raised our own money to do partial of the show, and then the rest of the funding we received through the Enegbi Youth Program, right? So,
Yeah.
But one of the things that we did was a lot of consulting with people from the LGBTQ2S community.
Amazing.
And that was the prominent answer that I got when I was asking how can we be inclusive and not be offensive, and most of the people said give them their own voice then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let them speak on it. Don't speak on their behalf.
Yeah.
That's how you become a good ally. And so we really wanted to honor those people who had advised us that way.
Yeah, awesome. So I feel like maybe just because I've looked just through I've started at the beginning of your episodes.
Okay.
And then I'm moving through. So I feel like safe sex is a huge focus
Yep.
when you're talking
Safer
about
sex.
safer sex.
what we were
There's no
taught.
such thing as safe sex.
Yeah.
That's
The
safer
only
sex.
safe sex you can have is with yourself. Is
Right?
What we were
Yeah,
taught.
Yes, yeah. So safer sex is something that is so important when we're talking to youth about sex education. That's the number one. And I mean, thank God there's still that in sex ed.
Yeah,
It's been cut a
it's
lot.
Good, it's good they're still talking about
Thank
condoms.
God it's still there at least. But like, can we talk about safer sex for
Yep.
a little bit? I'd love to just talk about, generally on this podcast, we kind of talk at like a 102 or 103 level, but I feel like it's really valuable just to once in a while, step back just to check in with people that they do know the 101 stuff.
Yep.
Because some
Yeah.
people that are like, oh, I know about safer sex. It's like, well, do you though?
Yeah.
Right?
It's good to check in. So what do you talk about when you talk about safer sex?
Well, we just released an episode on STDs and STIs, and which was really great because there's this myth, and a lot of people don't think you can contract STDs or STIs through oral sex. So
But,
all
yeah,
of the
all the STIs and STDs that were featured, you could contract through oral sex. So it was like chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis,
HPV, herpes.
and I can't remember the last one. There's something else there, but all of them you can contract from oral sex. And like herpes too, like you can get herpes type 1. So that's an oral area.
But you can get that on your genitals.
You can
Yeah,
get that
so
on
if
your
you
genitals.
have
So
a-
like
if
they're
you have a-
interchangeable, like herpes type 1 and herpes type 2. So
And so we really heavily promote flavored condoms in that one.
Yeah.
And
So
we-
barriers during oral sex.
Yes, or
Yeah.
dental dams. And we also, in our first episode, we show people how they can cut condoms and make them in dental dams. if
Yeah,
they
so you
don't.
just like snip off the tip and then
Exactly.
snip along the length and then you fold it out and it's that rectangle that you
absolutely.
just use as a barrier.
And so, that was one of the advices that we give. And then we also talked about the insertive condom versus the regular condom. Now,
Yeah,
we
and
call
internal,
And we call it an insertive condom now. Once again, a good learning experience because we always refer to it as the
Female
female
condom.
condom.
Yeah, it used to be called
But
a female
once again,
condom.
we want to be conscious of people's,
of our communities, yeah.
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 And
Or
we don't want to be
two-spirit
hurting
people, yeah.
anybody. So
Yeah, so the deal with the internal condom is that you've got the ring on the outside and the ring on the inside, and it's the small ring is inserted.
that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, just
And-
just like a menstrual cup or what?
No,
Did you try it out?
Lauren's first episode.
Product
did
review?
she try it out?
Do you have a review for us?
no, but she did do a demonstration on how it could be, how you insert it on
Yeah.
our first episode.
And then we had the banana and everything to slide it in to show people like how you slide
Yeah,
whatever you're sliding in there.
yeah.
But I gotta say I've never actually used an insertive condom, but
But people
Yeah,
have told
so
us
why
like
do you-
it feels really
a lot of
good.
people say it's better.
Yeah, so why do you think internal condoms, insertive condoms have never like taken off? I feel like nobody uses them.
I know, what's
and
that
they're
about?
a great alternative. What do you
I think
think?
because it's so new. I think people are just accustomed to like your regular condoms that you just
They have been around since I feel like
They have been around for a
mid-70s.
long time, but I guess the more prominent and common condom is just your typical condom.
Yeah,
That goes
penis
over
condom.
The penis, yeah.
Yeah.
I believe it was our third episode. We talked about creative ways to use condoms and to make them more fun. And I think if you're in a relationship, like always trying new things is always fun.
Yeah.
So like, and that would be
Try
something that
an
I'd be
internal
like,
condom.
hey, like, could you think we could try the insertive condom?
Yeah.
And what I like about the insertive condom is that you can actually have that pre-insert it before intercourse.
Yeah, you can insert it. I feel
yeah.
like 2 hours or something beforehand. You
so
can.
That, you know that awkward moment when you're like, hold
do you
on
got
one
a
second,
condom?
and
Yeah.
you're like chewing on the condom wrapper, you're like, it's not coming open, right?
Although do not open a condom wrapper with your teeth.
Yeah.
right? That's not
You
right.
might tear it, Edward.
I know.
Come on.
But
You
but
know better.
the point is, by the time you
Yes.
you get the condom on, the penis says,
Yeah,
right?
so let's talk about some of the positives maybe of the internal condom, because that's one of them. For
Yeah.
the penis condom, you need to have an erection to put it on.
Yeah.
Yep.
For the internal condom, it's worn by the person that has the vulva and vagina,
Right.
so
Yep.
they can. Nothing with an erection needs to be happening
Yeah.
That's
for
right.
you to put on the condom, right? So,
But I'm sure you still need an erection to put it in, though.
well, you can use your fingers, or you can use a dildo.
Yeah.
Especially if you're putting it on, you can be putting it on hours before the person even arrives for your date.
Right.
So you can be putting that on by
Ready to
yourself. But yeah, so you're ready to roll. So you don't have to like break that. Not that like there's, I don't know, the myth of the mood. That I don't think you can break a mood, but some
Right.
people feel the momentum of the situation.
Right. Yeah.
Can kind of be veered off if you have to break it to use barriers or whatever.
Absolutely.
But yeah, you can put it in beforehand. I feel like it's good for well, one thing that's good about either type of condom is that it's a form of birth control, but it's also a form of STI, prevention for STI, where a lot of, like, if you're using the sponge, if you're using the cervical cap, if you're using the diaphragm, they don't do both. So both condoms do both.
Absolutely.
But I feel like the internal condom, it also kind of covers the vulva a
Yeah,
bit. It gives
yeah.
you some vulva
And that will
coverage.
probably
There is some
protect you
coverage.
from herpes then too. Probably
Yeah,
a little bit
anything
more.
that's more like skin to skin contact,
yeah,
any
because that
STIs.
can happen on the base of the penis as well,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a great alternative.
Yeah, it gives you a little more coverage, so it actually gives you a little more protection from
Yeah.
like certain STIs, which is nice.
You sold me on insertive condoms. I'm gonna get some.
He's only gonna use those from now on.
This is the other problem with the insertive condoms. I don't find that they're as ready available as the regular condoms.
Very true.
So when I was shooting our episode for that, I mean, you'd be surprised how many places I had to call service providers that did not have them.
I don't
Yeah.
really see them in like drugstores. They're not that like accessible. I don't really see them.
And I
in
think they're a little bit more
drugstores.
expensive as well.
They are, yeah, they're more expensive.
Condoms should be free.
Yes,
Yeah.
No
thank
one should
you.
have to pay. You know what? They
And I
should
mean,
not-
in a lot of places in Toronto, they are
They
free.
are free.
Yeah, go
A lot
on
of
over.
agencies.
Yeah, exactly. But I feel like the other kind of limit that people find is that they don't know how to use it. They don't know how if they're inserting it properly.
Yeah.
And same thing with like using like cervical cap, diaphragm, any of this internal stuff that
Yeah.
you're inserting. I feel like people don't know if they're doing it correctly. So they're like, I know how to put a condom on a penis.
Yeah, it's-
so I'm just going to stick with that.
Yeah.
But it's actually, if you just do it a couple times,
You
like
get used to
even
it.
by
Hang of it.
yourself at home, because as we said, you don't need a penis to be using
Right.
this
Yeah, you
condom.
Just be by yourself.
Put it in
and-
on yourself a couple times.
And you know
Like,
what? There are tutorials on YouTube how to insert and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing.
That's how
there's
I
nothing-
learned.
yeah.
There's nothing funnier than being at your work and your boss is like, "What are you watching?" And there's like YouTube. There's like a person putting a, like, "This is for the sex ed."
Yeah, it's on task, I swear. Yeah.
It's part of my job.
And you know what? Another thing, not that there's enough great things about internal condoms already, is that the vulva or vagina owner is taking charge and they have
Yes,
ownership
yeah.
of the protection.
Absolutely.
Right? So it's not like you get in a situation and the dude or the penis owner is like, oh, I don't have a condom. Okay, well, all right, we still both want to have sex, so let's just have sex. It's like,
Yep.
that's not going to happen because the dude is forgetful and lazy. Not to generalize an entire gender, but they are.
And we're just identifying.
I got privilege. I just need to shut up. Yeah.
But the vulva or vagina owner can always take control of that.
And what I
yeah.
love about that, and it's the epitome of independence for an individual. It is our responsibility to protect our bodies.
Yes.
It's not no one else's responsibility. And me and Lauren go really heavy in
Yeah,
that.
we promote
because
that a lot.
especially with contracting STDs or STIs or getting pregnant, it always seems to be a blame game, and it's their fault. And at the end of the day, we want to bring people back that your body is your responsibility, and that it's your job to protect yourself.
Yeah.
And people say, "Oh, I trusted them," and I said, "You got to trust you.
Yeah.
You have to trust
And that's
you."
why
and-
we educate them after, like, what do you do after the fact you do get like an STD or you get pregnant, like, where do you go, like, and we educate them about that, because like once that does happen and once you take responsibility and you're not doing the blame game, like, how do you move forward in a good way? So we touch base on that.
I think it's just like the basic law of attraction. I think so many people focus on the fear of when they're getting tested, because it's a scary thing to do. Once you go get tested, they're, the anxiety, the depression that comes with, oh my God, what if I am test positive for anything? And we try to remind them, instead of having the fear of testing, the relief of testing negative is profoundly amazing. When you get your results back and you are negative, it is such a relief. So we try to focus our energy on reminding, especially young people I work with. I know you're focused on the fear, but once you get your results back and you're gonna feel a sense of relief. And even if you do test positive, then we can do something about it.
Yeah, it's a positive thing getting a positive result as well, because then you can feel, even if we're talking about, feel the relief of like not spreading it to anyone because you are being a responsible sexual partner. And like, so if you are tested for something, you're getting it treated and you're not passing it to someone else. Absolutely. And even if you are exhibiting symptoms, a lot of them are asymptomatic. So if you're getting symptoms or not getting symptoms, if you're getting symptoms, that's going to be a huge relief because your symptoms will go away because then you are treating the thing. And something you may not even realize is a symptom. It's like, oh, that's just a part of my life. And it's like, no, that was actually a symptom. Yeah. It's going to go away now. And like, good for you for being healthful.
Yeah. It's about being healthy and taking care of yourself and taking care of other people, right?
It is. I think it's a big part of being mature and being a consensual adult and having those sexual relationships. It's really important to go get those tests done. Yeah. And
how often and when do you guys recommend? Like,
I get tested at least twice a year.
Yeah. Great. I think that's the standard, twice a year. I think they say, or every time you encounter a new partner, or just like whenever something changes with a partner, like. Is when you should go get tested.
Oh, I just thought of another great reason for internal condoms. They're great for anal play and for anal sex as well. Because you can, so I don't know if any of you all do anal play or do anal sex. I do. And one nice thing is, it's your anus and your rectum, so it can get a little messy, and that's the nature of the beast. So it's nice that you can like go and take it out by yourself in the washroom after.
Oh, that's so true. I never thought about
that. You don't have to do it in front of the partner on the bed. Like, you can go and do it in the shower, take it out in the shower, which I feel like is really fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm just smiling.
I'm gonna smile and nod.
No, would it be and I don't know, but would it be hard to insert that into the anal versus the vagina?
No. I think like if you use lube,
you obviously have to use lube.
Anus, I think you would have to use lube,
and those come really lubricated. Like internal condoms come way more lubricated than a penis condom.
Yeah, our hands were soaked.
When we were doing the episode,
you're like,
when they did that episode,
you're covered.
Lauren was just like. We had like 100 Kleenexes when we're doing it, and we're like, geez.
Exactly. Yeah. But that like helps with obviously the comfort for the wearer, but it also helps with like there used to be an issue with internal condoms that they were noisy.
Really?
That they're like squeaky kind of.
Oh.
And that just helps with also the noise.
Right? That could kind of be cool though. I don't know.
If you've got like a plastic fetish or PVC fetish or like latex fetish, you might be into the squeaking sound. But
I didn't know that they were squeaky.
But most people are probably not into.
No, I don't.
That's why there's one of the reasons why they're so lubricated.
Oh gosh.
And I think a good thing to mention as well is to not use both of these condoms at the same time.
You know what? We should have included that. Aaron, thank you for
that would
bringing that
cause
up.
tear, I would believe, right?
Correct.
It could,
it's friction and potentially a tear. Yeah.
And we should never assume people know that.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. It's like,
I think
you assume people don't use a condom twice.
Right?
Like wash it and use it again. But like,
sometimes people do stuff like that.
Sometimes it's a good thing to just check in with everyone that it's like don't
just so you know.
But we did include that in our video. We just like you toss it in the garbage after you're done with it. Like we had a garbage beside our table in our one video.
We didn't. I'm not sure if we talked about not using.
But we didn't talk about using both at the same time because we made that assumption. But for our viewers who are going to tune into this,
viewers now
you know, don't use both of them at the same time.
Yeah. I also because I was researching a bit of like. A bit on prophylactics and contraception and stuff like this for this interview, and something that was kind of interesting I found is that spermicide, right? Spermicide is a chemical
That kills sperms.
It doesn't actually kill, but
Does
it
it?
slows them down.
Okay.
Slows them down so they don't make it to the egg, essentially. Which is another thing I assumed. I'm like, oh, spermicide kills
the sperms,
but actually
right?
just
Yeah,
slows it down,
exterminate
apparently. But and a lot of the internal devices like a diaphragm or a sponge or whatever, they need spermicide to work as well. However, apparently the chemical in spermicide can be a little irritating for some folks. You know, everybody has different vulvas and different vaginas, so there's
some are more
a
sensitive.
range. But irritation translates into like potentially small fissures, which actually will increase the risk of STI.
Really, eh?
Yeah, transmission. If something's irritating, because it's causing a fissure, like very tiny fissures.
Aw.
Yeah, so just be aware. That's something I didn't know, that spermicide can be an irritant.
That's the first time I've heard of it too.
Yeah,
so.
can be an irritant because as we know why. Yeah, and anything that's being irritated, which is why a lot of STIs are transmitted anally, is because it's more likely anally rather than vaginally for very small, just microscopic kind of tears to happen.
Yeah.
And anytime there's an open wound or anything like that, STIs are like getting in there right in there.
Well, and then this big misconception that HIV is a gay related disease is so far fetched. Actually, the highest rising rate in Saskatchewan right now is Aboriginal women, I believe, with HIV infection, who are having sex with men. So, and we talk about those tears because when you're having anal sex, there is more chancing for tearing, for blood to be interacting with the semen, and therefore the virus to be transmitting.